Pittsburgh Steelers got a triple dose of good news over the bye week without even have to lift a finger. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Finally, it is game week yet again in Steelers Nation. This week, we've got the Cleveland Browns. We're going to have extensive coverage for you guys right here on Steelers Talk all throughout the week. But before we kick things off here in Week 6, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you are ready for another week of Steelers football. The Steelers are 3-1. The AFC North is an absolute shambles. So if you are absolutely thrilled about that, click that thumbs up icon if you're excited for the rest of this season. Speaking of the AFC North being in shambles, that is the first bit of good news that we have on today's show, is that it was a great week to be a Pittsburgh Steelers fan because all three of the AFC North rivals took an L this weekend. And, I mean, these three teams are just in a downward spiral right now where the Steelers are only getting better. The Cleveland Browns lost in London to the Minnesota Vikings. Honestly, the Vikings did not play a good game. They had a lot of penalties. They had fumbles. They didn't pass protect well for Carson Wentz, and the Browns still freaking lost that football game. 21-17, giving up a clutch drive to Carson Wentz at the end of that football game. And, of course, Dylan Gabriel looked okay, but certainly not phenomenal in his first ever NFL start. Then the Baltimore Ravens, without Lamar Jackson, without, Roquan Smith, without Ronnie Stanley, without all these players that they had injured, they lost to C.J. Stroud and the Texans. And the Texans, an offense that scored like 16 points a game, heading into this ball game, ended up scoring 44 on them. So the Ravens start their season 1-4. And then you get the Cincinnati Bengals, who lose 37-24. That defense looks like it might be the worst in the National Football League, maybe outside of the Baltimore Ravens. And the offense, led by Jake Browning, is certainly not good enough to make up the difference. So Pittsburgh actually gained ground in the AFC North on Sunday by doing absolutely nothing. They were sitting on their couch yesterday, and they still gained a whole game over the Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Cleveland Browns, or at least a half game, I should say, because they all lost their football game. So right now, as we sit here right now heading into Week 6, the AFC North standings look like this. The Pittsburgh Steelers are sitting at 3-1, the only team with a winning record. The Cincinnati Bengals are coming off of 3 straight losses, and it doesn't look like that losing streak is coming to an end anytime soon. Then you got the Baltimore Ravens, who are coming off of 3 straight losses in their own right, and they have a bunch of injuries, and they play the Los Angeles Rams next week. And then you got the Cleveland Browns, who are sitting at 1-4 as well. So it's just not looking like a really good situation for the rest of the AFC North. And just 5 weeks into the season, the Pittsburgh Steelers already have a game-and-a-half lead over the Cincinnati Bengals, and they already have a 2.5-game lead over the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. And then over the next 2 weeks, this is what the schedules look like for these football teams. The Cleveland Browns play us next week, okay? Then you got the Miami Dolphins in Week 7. Browns could maybe win one of those games, I would say. And then the Bengals, they get the Green Bay Packers next week. I think there's no way in hell they win that football game. And then they play us in Week 7 on a short week on Thursday Night Football. Don't really see them beating us personally. That's just my personal opinion. Obviously, the Steelers need to take care of business. And then Baltimore, after a 1-4 start, they might not have Lamar Jackson again, and they have to play Matthew Stafford in that Rams offense that has looked really good through the first few weeks of the season. So the Ravens have the bye in Week 7, but it looks like right now the potential 2-week outlook, just looking at who's favored in these football games over the next 2 weeks, this is what the AFC North division could look like, guys, in just 2 weeks' time. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers sitting at 5-1, coming off of 2 straight divisional victories over the Cleveland Browns and Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals and Cleveland both sitting at 2-5. I'm assuming Cleveland could beat Miami, but that's certainly not a given. They could be sitting at 1-6 very easily. And the Baltimore Ravens would be sitting at 1-5, which would mean that the Steelers, through almost half of the season, have a 3.5-game head start in terms of the race down the stretch to win the AFC North Championship. So, in my opinion, guys, there's a real chance that this could happen. And if it does happen, the Pittsburgh Steelers, should certainly be favored to win the division. Right now, believe it or not, guys, the new odds just came out this morning. The Baltimore Ravens are still pretty heavily favored to win this division, which is an absolute joke. And the national media, Vegas, they just can't quit Lamar Jackson. They just can't quit Derrick Henry. They love slurping the Baltimore Ravens. It's absolutely ridiculous. So right now, go make some money right now by betting on the Pittsburgh Steelers, because this is a Steelers team that's only going to get better as the season goes on. And right now, things are absolutely falling off the bus of the Baltimore Ravens. So I think that's a good opportunity right now to cash in while the getting is good, because I don't think that's going to be the case for much longer. But I will have to say here, guys, all right, we are kind of counting our chickens before they hatch here. And it goes without saying, the Pittsburgh Steelers need to take care of business, especially over the next 2 weeks. All right, there's no reason the Pittsburgh Steelers shouldn't be able, off of a bye, with plenty of time to prepare for a rookie quarterback. Mike Tomlin has an excellent record, not only off of a bye, but against rookie quarterbacks. There's no reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers shouldn't beat the Cleveland Browns, and then they shouldn't be able to beat the Cincinnati Bengals on Thursday Night Football, getting to a 5-1 start before their schedule does get a little bit harder, right? You got Green Bay, you got Indianapolis, you've got the Chargers, even though LA is coming off of 2 straight losses. You still got the Bills coming up. You still got the Ravens twice when they're probably going to be healthier. The schedule does get harder down the stretch, and this thing is still far from over. But the Pittsburgh Steelers over these next 2 weeks have an awesome opportunity to set a foundation to be able to set themselves up to be AFC North champions this year and get a home playoff game come January. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers win their next 2 games versus the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals? I think they absolutely should, but let me know your prediction down there in the comment section. Give me a yes or a no down there in the comments for today's pinned question. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at PrizePicks. While I'm telling you about our sponsor today, simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. With that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And you and I, we both make decisions every single day. But on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'll be getting my PrizePicks lineups in all season long. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from PrizePicks that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks will not count that as a loss. So let's take a look at my PrizePicks lineup for tonight's Monday Night Football action between the Chiefs and the Jaguars. I'm taking the more on Patrick Mahomes' passing yards. I'm taking the more on Trevor Etienne rushing and receiving combined yards. I'm taking the more on Trevor Lawrence interceptions. And I'm taking the more on Xavier Worthy receiving yards. If you guys want to get your lineup in for Monday Night Football tonight, you can go download the app today for free. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Excuse me. All right, so now let's get into the second item of good news here for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is that there have been some openings in the wide receiver market. All right, there's a number of teams that are kind of falling off the skids right now with veteran wide receivers on expiring contracts that could be willing to deal some receivers to the Pittsburgh Steelers if they're looking to add another receiver before the deadline. We'll start with the Las Vegas Raiders and Jacoby Myers. The Raiders are now 1-4. They have lost the last 4 games. Their offense is in absolute shambles. Geno Smith has thrown 8 interceptions over the last several games. And Jacoby Myers is on an expiring contract. He already requested a trade before the start of the season. There's no way he's happy there. I think it's only a matter of time here before the Raiders start selling him off. I don't know if we're at the point yet. We're still almost a month away from the trade deadline here in the National Football League, so they might keep him until closer to the deadline. And honestly, the Steelers might feel pretty content with where they're at right now. Apparently, Calvin Austin could be returning to the lineup here in short order. And if that's the case, maybe they feel good about their wide receiver duo, and they feel good about Roman as a number 3 guy. But Jacoby is certainly a name to monitor as the weeks go on with the Raiders season essentially over. Then we get to the Philadelphia Eagles here. We got a very interesting report over the weekend from Diana Rossini from The Athletic, claiming that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are both quote-unquote frustrated with the passing attack in Philly. Specifically in the red zone, Jalen Hurts and that offense is not targeting their wide receivers all that much. And of course, the touchdowns that they had yesterday, of course, neither of them went to A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. They had one to a tight end and then one to Saquon Barkley in their loss yesterday versus the Denver Broncos. So I can't imagine that the frustrations were lifted, even though the Eagles did try and pass the football more yesterday against that really good Denver defense. So that's going to be one to keep your eye on. I think because the Eagles are winning, I would say it's highly unlikely that they end up trading either one of these guys. They're both really good players, so unless one of these guys has a complete meltdown and demands a trade out of Philly, I really doubt that they let him go. And even if they do, I'm not sure if the Steelers are going to be willing to give give up the first or second round pick that would likely be required to get one of these guys. So, definitely some names to monitor, but I would say highly unlikely in terms of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But a name and a team to definitely keep your eye on here in the weeks to come that I think is absolutely realistic is the New Orleans Saints. And there's a report from Nick Underhill, who is very in tune with the football team, lots of sources inside the Saints organization. He says that the Saints are getting ready to sell by the NFL deadline. This is what Underhill had the tweet out this weekend. Says there are teams interested in some of the Saints' veteran players, and they'll be watching to see who becomes available in the coming weeks, league sources tell me. There's a feeling around the league that New Orleans will be open to hearing offers in the coming weeks. So, in terms of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wide receiver market, that would mean Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Chris Olave is the one, first-round pick. Everyone knows him. He's from Ohio State. Fantastic route runner. I think he's got really good hands for a guy that maybe doesn't have, like, a really well-built frame. Like, he's kind of a slender guy, but he brings good hands to the table. Would love to bring in Chris Olave, even though he does have a little bit of a concern with concussions. If he has one more, like, he could retire. Like, that's just the kind of the reality with Chris Olave at this point. He's had so many that if he gets another one, you really have to worry about him playing long term. But then Rashid Shaheed had a long touchdown yesterday in New Orleans' win versus the New York Giants. He's an absolute speedster, one of the best true deep threats in the National Football League. If you want to pair Calvin Austin III and his speed and his deep threat ability with Shaheed's, that's a lot of speed to have to deal with, right? You would have to deal with DK Metcalf and his speed, Calvin Austin III and his speed, and then Rashid Shaheed and his speed, all right? Say speed 5 times fast, right? So that would definitely be something that I would also be interested in. I wouldn't be willing to give up as high of a draft pick for Rashid Shaheed, but certainly an interesting possibility that I think Steelers fans should keep their eye on. And then a name that I'll also throw out there, which I do think is a little bit unlikely, but would be really cool to see him return to the Steel City, is Jordan Addison. Because how many chances does this guy have left with Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, he's had a number of incidents with motor vehicles that have certainly peeved off Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings brass. But now there's a report that he missed walkthrough and he was out like at 5 a.m. in the morning of the London game. And he was just exploring London, and he was enjoying the nightlife the day of the game, the morning of the game, instead of getting rest. And, like, even Justin Jefferson had to cuss him out that following day. And, it just seems like, Addison has certainly, has kind of, used up some of the patience that he maybe has earned by being a first-round pick there for the Minnesota Vikings. He certainly has had some really good moments on the field as a Minnesota Viking. He caught the goddamn winning touchdown yesterday morning in the game, but he had to miss the entire first quarter because he was getting a team-imposed suspension for missing walkthrough the day of the game, right? So that is just absolutely unacceptable, obviously. And right now the Minnesota Vikings are 3-2, so they're not really in a position where they're going to be selling at the deadline, but we have about a month of games left to go before we get to the deadline. And they got to play the Eagles, the Chargers on the road, the Lions on the road, and then the Ravens when Lamar Jackson's going to be back at that point. It's very possible with J.J. McCarthy set to return to the lineup after their bye week in Week 6 that they could lose all 4 of these games. All right, and if that's the case, you're sitting at what, 3-6, and the season's over. And do they really want to keep working with Jordan Addison if he continues to make some of these off the field mistakes? And listen, if Minnesota is selling at the deadline, could Addison be an asset that they could look to unload? I highly doubt that they'd be wanting to give him like a massive new contract. And I know that, the Steelers have unloaded receivers in the past, like Dante Johnson, George Pickens, guys that haven't been super professional off the playing field. And like if you're bringing in Addison, why would you bring him in when you unloaded George Pickens for very similar issues? But Jordan Addison is somebody that I know Mike Tomlin has a ton of respect for. Obviously, they know him a little bit. He was in the building when he was here with Pitt when he won the Biletnikoff Award. And to see him paired with DK Metcalf would be absolutely awesome. And I know that's something that a lot of Steelers fans would love to see. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Should the Pittsburgh Steelers trade for a wide receiver before the trade deadline this year? And if so, which wide receiver is your preference? Do you want Chris Olave? Do you want Jacoby Myers? Do you want Jordan Addison? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. We'll finish up today's show with the third bit of good news, which is that the 2026 quarterback class for the NFL draft, maybe just fine in terms of first-round talent. Now, you might be saying at home, but Jack, there's a ton of guys that are underperforming, and that is 100% true. You take a look at the guys that were supposed to be first-round talents heading into the year, according to the consensus big board. You have guys like Cade Klubnik, who bounced back this last week, but in general has been really bad to start the season. Arch Manning has had a really rough start to his Texas tenure. LaNorris certainly hasn't taken another step forward. Garrett Nussmeier has thrown a lot of interceptions and hasn't looked great. Drew Allar has not looked great either at Penn State. Now, Mendoza from Indiana, I think was a little bit under the radar. Some of the draft nerds kind of knew about him, but he's been somebody that has certainly at least met expectations. He's still expected to be a first-round pick. But you look at this list of the guys that were expected to be at the top of this year's draft class, and you were expecting these guys to play well, almost none of them have been living up to the hype. But we have had a number of pleasant surprises in college football. So if you are just willing to kind of negate kind of the preseason expectations and you start to look at some of the guys that have actually played well in college football this year, there's actually a number of options that I think could be pretty darn good for the Pittsburgh Steelers to consider, especially if they're drafting in somewhere between the 20 and 30 range, wherever they end up going in the playoffs this year. You got Dante Moore out of Oregon. He might go back to school, but he's got a lot of poise and a lot of arm talent that should intrigue anybody looking for a first-round quarterback. John Mateer, he's got some awesome arm talent, some really great rushing ability as well. Could be a first-round pick if he plays well coming off of his thumb injury. Simpson from Alabama didn't play his best game last week and was still able to make some big plays down the stretch to get Alabama that win versus Vanderbilt. Simpson's had a really good start to the season, and I think he might have the most impressive college tape out of any quarterback in college football to start this year. And then Sam Leavitt, the Steelers have been giving him a lot of attention. He's got some serious arm talent, a quick release, and he can run with the football. And then Carson Beck, man, I mean, his mental processing, his ability to get the ball where it needs to go, his precision have been really impressive in Miami. And, even though he's a redshirt senior, a little bit older, the Steelers are looking for somebody that can start right away. He looks like somebody that can pick up an NFL offense right away and be a serviceable starter. So all these guys could be in consideration for round one. And right now, I think you look at the college football landscape, you can make a case, all right, for 9 quarterbacks to be potential first-round guys. Now, that doesn't mean all of them are going to come out, all right? Some of these guys are going to go back to college. Some of them are going to continue to struggle, and they're not going to be considered first-round picks. I would say right now there is about 4 to 6. I think we'll end up with 4 to 6 first-round quarterbacks next year. And if you are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, that is good news for you because that's going to mean more options for Omar Khan. If there's somebody that they particularly like, they can trade up and even, consider trading their 2027 first-round pick to go get their guy, all right? And because a lot of these guys that were expected to go high have been underwhelming, guys like LaNorris could be available for the Steelers now to trade up for potentially in the first round. And then you got a bunch of different options that have certainly risen up the boards here. Guys like Carson Beck, Simpson, Dante Moore, and then also guys like Fernando Mendoza is still there. Like, this class is not as bad as people are saying on Twitter because the expectations for the guys that were supposed to go round one absolutely hasn't been great to this point. But when you include the guys that have really surprised us in the college football season so far and are rising up draft boards right now, I think that the quarterback class looks a lot better than a lot of people are giving it credit for right now. So tally them up right now down there in the comment section. How many college quarterbacks would you spend a first-round pick on right now if you were Omar Khan, the Steelers GM? Let me know how many quarterbacks you feel good about, and then tell me about your favorite QB target down there in the comment section. That'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk. We'll have another video coming out later. If we get any injury updates on Calvin Austin III or Jalen Ramsey, if we get any other news and rumors that comes out throughout the day, we'll make sure to cover that later in the PM video here on Steelers Talk. I really do appreciate you guys spending some time with us here today. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.